You probably think you know WWE inside and out. The names like The Rock, John Cena, or Stone Cold Steve Austin are etched into wrestling history, and everyone has their favorite legendary matches memorized. But what about the wrestlers who appeared on WWE television for just a fleeting moment? The ones who barely left a mark on storylines, yet were once officially part of the roster. Some of these performers showed up for a handful of seconds, some were lost amid eras crowded with stars, and others had careers that were downright bizarre. Today, we're diving into the world of WWE's most obscure talents, those you might not even realize ever existed. And trust me, by the end of this video, you're gonna know exactly who they are. So buckle up, because this is Wrestling Sphere, and we're uncovering 13 WWE wrestlers you never knew existed. Let's kick things off with a story that is equal parts absurd and unforgettable. In 2013, WWE had an idea that sounded fine on paper: take Ryback and give him Paul Heyman in his corner. Heyman had a knack for making big men feel like unstoppable forces, so it seemed like a natural pairing. The problem? Ryback's storyline was built around a feud with CM Punk, who at the time was growing increasingly frustrated with WWE behind the scenes. To add some extra chaos, WWE introduced CM Skunk. Yes, CM Skunk. Not CM Punk, the real superstar, but a knockoff impersonator. This was on a SmackDown segment that has to be seen to be believed. The entire bit felt like an on-air prank gone wild. CM Skunk's role? Take the brunt of Ryback and Heyman's attacks, look ridiculous, and disappear just as quickly as he appeared. There was no follow-up, no storyline, and certainly no real purpose. In the history of odd WWE moments, CM Skunk is one of the strangest, and perhaps the most forgettable. Next up, we have Amy Weber. Her story is a perfect example of how brief appearances can still leave a lasting impression, but not always in the way you might expect. Amy Weber was introduced during the 2004 Diva search, and soon found herself paired with JBL as his image consultant. She didn't need to wrestle to be noticed, but the potential for her character was there. However, backstage drama quickly overshadowed her on-screen presence. Weber later claimed she had been bullied by Randy Orton and Edge, and there were also complaints about her pay. Whatever the full truth, the tension became a central part of her WWE legacy. By 2005, Weber had left WWE, and Jillian Hall stepped into her former role. Her story is a reminder that sometimes the drama behind the curtain outshines the moments in the ring. Eric Escobar comes next. He was considered a promising talent, someone WWE genuinely believed could make an impact. In FCW, he had the attention of WWE officials and was paired with Vicky Guerrero during his main roster debut on SmackDown. That partnership should have elevated him, given Vicky's ability to draw heat and make characters memorable. But WWE made a critical error. They turned Escobar into a babyface before he had the chance to connect with the audience. Without any real bond with fans, the character floundered. Soon, he was relegated to lower-tier shows and ultimately released in January 2010. Escobar's brief stint serves as a cautionary tale about timing, audience connection, and how quickly momentum can disappear. Then there's Bibi, also known as Barbara Bush, not the president, of course. Women in WWE's Attitude Era rarely got fully developed roles, and Bibi's short-lived career illustrates that perfectly. She debuted in 1999 as a female medical worker, a character clearly intended more for presentation than wrestling credibility. When WWE realized the role wasn't working, they pivoted to an Attitude Era solution, having her powerbombed through a table by the Dudley Boys in 2000. That one shocking moment was her defining appearance. Bibi's only other noteworthy match was an evening gown match at Armageddon 1999 with Miss Kitty, Ivory, and Jacqueline. Beyond that, she vanished from the WWE landscape, leaving a lingering sense of what could have been. Brockus is another case of an idea that looked perfect on paper but didn't translate in practice. Introduced in 1996, he was a massive German bodybuilder with the kind of look Vince McMahon couldn't resist. Yet despite his physique, Brockus lacked the in-ring skill, charisma, and crowd connection needed for the emerging Attitude Era. Bruce Pritchard later admitted Brockus had very little athletic ability, which explains why his career never gained traction. Though he spent time in both WWE and ECW, by 1999 he retired quietly. Brockus remains a reminder that in professional wrestling, looks alone rarely carry someone to stardom. The ruthless aggression era brought us Jesus, a mysterious enforcer introduced during John Cena's feud with Carlito over the US Championship. WWE framed him as the man who had supposedly stabbed Cena in a nightclub, a dark, shocking storyline that was designed to give Cena a break from television while filming The Marine. Jesus' impact was fleeting. He lost to Cena at Armageddon 2004, suffered an injury shortly after, and was released. The combination of over-the-top storylines and a brief run means most fans don't even remember him. Johnny Paparisi is next, a wrestler better known to Impact Wrestling fans, but with two separate WWE runs that barely registered. First appearing in 1995 as Joe Dorgan in a few enhancement matches, he didn't make enough of an impression to earn a contract. Years later, he returned as Johnny Paparisi, mostly wrestling on shows like Heat. Reliable and professional, he lacked a memorable persona, and by 2006 he was released once again. Paparisi's story demonstrates how even experienced performers can fade into obscurity without a standout character. Gunnar Scott appeared briefly between 2001 and 2003, but didn't officially debut on SmackDown until 2006. He had a dream start, defeating former champion Booker T in his first match and earning praise from Christophe Benoit. Initially, it seemed WWE was investing in him as a rising talent, potentially as Benoit's protege. However, internal opinions quickly turned negative, with Finlay and Dean Malenko reportedly believing Scott lacked individuality. He was sent back to developmental and eventually released by October 2006. Despite his promising debut, Scott's run ended as quickly as it began, leaving him as yet another lost opportunity in WWE history. Just Joe, otherwise known as Joe E. Legend, was repackaged into a gimmick that could have been entertaining but quickly fizzled. His role involved drifting into backstage segments, making suggestive comments, and casually saying, "It's okay, it's just Joe," as chaos unfolded. While it could have worked as a comic instigator in the Attitude Era, WWE lost interest almost immediately, and the character disappeared alongside the WCW acquisition. Just Joe is an example of a concept with potential that was never fully explored. Jackson Andrews, brought in as Tyson Kidd's bodyguard, appeared silent and largely ineffective. He didn't even have a televised match before being sent back to FCW. Released in 2011, Andrews' story grew stranger after his WWE tenure, including assault allegations and reports of being engaged to two women simultaneously. A career that began quietly became infamous for reasons far removed from wrestling. Hay Vanson arrived with a mysterious, almost supernatural aura in 2008. WWE planned big things for him, potentially involving a group of dark characters and even a WrestleMania 25 storyline with The Undertaker. One bold idea had him revealed as Undertaker's son, a twist that could have been monumental. But at 5'11", Vince McMahon reportedly decided the plan wasn't right, and Vanson was released just 2 weeks after his vignette aired. A debut that promised intrigue vanished almost instantly, leaving him as a ghost-like figure in WWE history. Finally, we have the Jiminy. The Shane twins were promising as an independent tag team, and WWE signed them in 2005, renaming them the Jiminy and aligning them with Simon Dean. They appeared on SmackDown regularly at first, but were quickly demoted to Velocity. One brother's injury further stalled momentum, and after a stint in Deep South Wrestling, both were released in early 2007. WWE later uploaded a video portraying them as a forgettable tag team, cementing a narrative of a career that never fully materialized. These 13 wrestlers each had something unique, whether it was potential, a memorable look, or a shocking storyline. But for one reason or another, WWE audiences barely remember them today. From CM Skunk to the Jiminy, their stories remind us that the world of professional wrestling is full of fleeting moments, lost opportunities, and creative risks that don't always pay off. Some disappear quietly, some under a cloud of controversy, and some in ways that are almost unbelievable in hindsight. It's fascinating to look back and see how many wrestlers have passed through WWE's doors, leaving only traces of what might have been. Money in the Bank, followed up by a stint in Team Rhodes Scholars and as Damien Mizdow. He achieved quite a bit of popularity in this run, but it was met with awful creative and burials from WWE. Fans may forget that this was actually his second spell in WWE, originally signing in 2003 and wrestling as Idol Stevens. He would even challenge on PPV for the WWE Tag Team titles at No Mercy 2006, but his time on the main roster was fairly short and not memorable in the slightest. D'Lo Brown was a notable mid-card guy in the late 1990s and early 2000s, rising to prominence in the Nation of Domination faction. He had some decent success, winning both the Intercontinental and European titles, and would play a part in several entertaining acts over the years. In 2008, he briefly returned to WWE for a completely random comeback run. He initially returned in just dark matches, before emerging on Raw as essentially glorified enhancement talent, with no effort made to really capitalize on his notoriety from bygone eras. He was released after less than a year. Watching wrestling is great. The amazing matches, the fantastic promos, the awesome moments. Wrestling is simply the most fun thing we allow on television. But there's something even better than watching wrestling, and that's talking about wrestling. How should so-and-so be booked? Who should be the one to knock off the champ? Why would they do that? What should happen next? And most of all, who is the best? Enter this article. As a professional writer who spends entirely too much time thinking about wrestling, there was simply no way I couldn't write this piece. I want you to know I took it entirely too seriously, doing my best to make the absolute best list possible of the best wrestlers of the last 33 years. A few things I want to address. Why 33 years? That takes me from age 6 to the present, aka when I could have a real opinion about wrestling. I wasn't comfortable writing about wrestlers I didn't see live in their heyday. The specific timeline is 1990 to 2023. Primarily, I focused on WCW and WWE, although ECW, AEW, and work in the many independent promotions were considered as well. Meaning, a wrestler who can draw big numbers for a short period, Goldberg, CM Punk, was favored over a wrestler who was there forever but didn't really move the needle, Kane. And while athleticism and moveset is important, what I'm really looking for in in-ring ability is the ability to tell great stories in the ring that captures the imagination of the audience. Let's dive in. Did I get something right? Something wrong? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you all. If you look at the 4 categories, he's a 10 out of 10 in all 4. He can draw, he can have a great match with anyone. Admittedly, some of the stuff feels a little gimmicky now, but at the time it was revolutionary. Just watch Hulk Hogan wrestle and compare the matches. Nobody had more longevity, and nobody changed the game more either. Ric Flair carried great promotions. He carried not-so-great promotions. He could headline any card, anytime, anywhere. Even today, he's the standard bearer, the GOAT, the man who gave more than anyone else. The Nature Boy is a no-brainer at number 1, even if in 1990 he was already out of his prime. He was that good. Woo! If you enjoyed learning about these forgotten WWE names, there's a whole universe of little-known wrestling stories waiting to be uncovered. Hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned to Wrestling Sphere so you won't miss any of the obscure, wild, and sometimes tragic tales from the squared circle. Until next time, keep watching, because WWE's history has more surprises than you could ever imagine.